have Emily and Andrew here with the National Center for Family Learning, and they're going to talk to us about digital resources to support family engagement. So if that's what you're looking for, you're in the right room. Thank you to you both for being here.
Great. Thanks, Kim, so much for having us. As Kim said, I'm Andrea Brown, Director of Professional Learning at the National Center for Family Learning, and we're going to share with you today a brief overview of NCFL. We're also going to share lots of our free digital resources, and then close it out by sharing about some funding opportunities that we have through a grant that NCFL has received in the state of Kentucky. So welcome everybody. We'll have Emily introduce herself when she gets to her slides. But just a quick overview of who we are and what we do. All of NCFL's work is really centered around families. So everything that we do touches providing solutions for families in some way. And our goal for the next several years is to, by 2030, have coordinated and aligned family learning systems in 60 communities across the country. And again, with families at the center. So we want to build these systems with and for families. And I'm going to share just a teeny bit about how we do that, and then we'll dig into the good stuff with the resources. But just for some context, in case you are wondering kind of who we are, or maybe have heard about us as the National Center for Family Literacy. That's really how we got our start. Our president, or our former president and our founder, Sharon Darling, started this work back in 1989 when she was working with adults in Appalachia, and she was really focused on some basic literacy needs, and quickly realized that really it wasn't just addressing the needs of the adult, but we needed to address the needs of the whole family. And so our family literacy model was born. And that was really focused, like I said, on basic literacy skills. So attracting families who were looking to maybe learn English or get a GED or a high school equivalency credential. So family literacy was really the core of what we did for many years. And that would involve education for adults, education for children, and also what we call parent time, addressing the needs of parents, and then bringing parents together with their children through pack time so that they could have these family learning experiences together. As our work progressed, we realized that we were really needed to broaden our thinking about learning with families and really respond to the changing needs of what families were wanting and needing. So we became the National Center for Family Learning. We had that name change to really include all aspects of literacy. We really took our work into more of a community focus in addition to our work that we had done in schools. So family literacy a lot of times happened in a school environment, and we really started to expand that reach around 2013 with the National Center for Family Learning, when we became the National Center for Family Learning. And now, in 2022, we got a new president, Dr. Felicia Cummings-Smith, and under her leadership have established this vision and this goal to be in 60 communities by 2030. And our goal for those communities is to really coordinate and align all of these resources. So we know that there are lots of programs and resources out there that support families, but they don't necessarily talk to each other. And so through our work, our hope is to help communities coordinate these supports and services that can sometimes lead to inequities for families that might be farthest from the opportunity, and really have those ways to authentically engage families and bring families to the table as we're thinking about what that could look like. So it's not a one-size-fits-all model. It's really working within a community to meet the needs, like I said, of that community. And so our goal is to implement, collaborate with communities and families to implement programs that are going to be the most effective to meet the needs of that community. And we do that through family literacy, family engagement, and family leadership. So those are the three major elements of our work. Family literacy being the most intense model that really works birth through adult to build those skills of children and parents. Family engagement is a little broader and really works to build the capacity of organizations, of schools to work alongside families and also provide resources to support family engagement. And then family leadership is focused a lot on building the leadership capacity that already exists within the families that we serve. So really making sure that we're tapping into that potential and the expertise that families already have and building those leadership skills. And to make sure that we are also, sorry, I advanced the slides on the wrong screen. That's my fault. We're building those leadership skills, and that we eventually have networked communities where programming is not as siloed, but we're really networking communities that are working together. So I'm going to hand it off to Emily, and she's going to share a lot of our family engagement resources that we have for free that you could use in your program. So Emily, I'll kick it over to you.
Thanks, Andrea. Hi, I'm Emily Sedwick. I am a family engagement content specialist at the National Center for Family Learning, but I'm also the librarian on staff, which is why I'm here today. I like to be in community with other librarians and people who serve in the community that way. So that's who I am. And I've been with the National Center since 2014, which is, as you saw on the slides, right about the time that the thrust of our work changed from just schools to communities. So I've really been able to enjoy being in that space and helping to expand what it looks like. My Alexa just heard me say something, apparently. Okay, go ahead, Andrea. So I wanted to show you just basically what our page looks like. If you're going to our page to find information, you'll see that this doesn't show everything because it's a pretty big page, but at the top you would see some basic ways to navigate into the page. So this is familieslearning.org. That is our webpage address, and you have to make sure and make it plural, so familieslearning.org. And you can see there's a lot of different things that you can learn about us, see about us, and interact with us on this page. So we are hiring. We've done a lot of growth in the past couple of years, and Andrea gets the joy of being one of the people who gets to help hire new people. She's always looking for good trainers. So if you're interested in working with us, please do look at the opportunities that are there. We've also got information about our history, like Andrea just shared, the people who work with us. We've got lovely headshots up there if you want to check out what we look like. But there at the top where the arrow is, you'll also see free resources, which is what we're going to talk about today. And a little bit to the right of that too, I'll do a little plug for the National Literacy Directory, which is one of our products that we do in collaboration with Dollar General. So if you run any kind of a literacy program and you want people to be able to find you, if you go there, there's a way to enter your information and put yourself on the map as far as where you are in the state of Kentucky and what kind of programming you do so that people can locate you a little more easily. Okay, so if we're looking at free resources, you can see there that the banner across the top says free resources. And I've gone ahead and clicked into the Families and Family Literacy page just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. You can see, though, that if you click on the drop-down menu that says View More, that we divide our resources up to be a little more easily identifiable by audience. So if you are someone who works with young children and you do early childhood, or if you're someone who works with English language learners, you've got that option. If you're working with all ages of kids who are concentrating on their reading skills, we've got that. If you work with educators or you yourself are an educator, as we know, all librarians actually are educators, or other literacy professionals like tutors and things like that, we've got those resources. We have a wealth of webinars that go back several years on a lot of different resources, many of them conducted by our in-house staff on things that we are sharing expertise on, and some are from partners that we've brought in to talk about things that they have expertise on. And then out of school time, which is really where I focus now, because that's how we kind of identify libraries and community-based organizations, is out of school time. And the thing to know about this page is we will be getting a new website soon. So the things that I'm going to show you and how to get there might change. Getting there will definitely change, but a few of the resources will probably disappear in the next couple of months. So if you go to our page and you look for things and you don't find them, or if you look for something and you think that you want to keep it, you might want to go ahead and download it now and make sure that it doesn't go away, because if you come back to us later, we may or may not be able to locate it for you. Okay, Andrea, go ahead. So the first one I want to talk about is this resource called Talking About Wordless Picture Books. And this we're specifically bringing to your attention because Amy Olson mentioned it as something that librarians in the state have been interested in and have used. And it has been around a long time. It's one of our older resources that's on our webpage. It was back when we had a partnership with UPS. And it's got our old, people call that the football player, our old football player icon there at the bottom. But it has good bones, and that's why we've kept it this long. But this is one of the things that will probably go away when we get our new website. So if you think this is something that you'd be interested in keeping, go ahead and download it now, and then you'll have the resources and you won't have to worry about it. But what this is a resource that can be used by people who are doing tutoring with English language learners. And not very basic English language learners. These are people who have a little bit of the grasp of the language, but are wanting to expand their vocabulary and their conversation skills. So it walks through a 10-stage facilitation if you have tutors who are working one-to-one with English language learners. It's not meant for big group settings because you wouldn't want to do a one-size-fits-all kind of approach with English language learners, because they're at all different levels and they might need all different kinds of support. And the beauty of this too is that when you're supporting the English language learners, you're also teaching them how to use wordless picture books for storytelling. So not only are they working on their own language skills and their own conversation skills, it's something that they can use with their own children. So if they have preschoolers at home, they can go home and share what they've learned with small children. So they're building a multilingual, multi-generational literacy activity, which is fantastic. And there's a really long list of books included with this. And I will say that the list is outdated, but also there are some kind of classic books in there, like some Eric Carle books and Tana Hoban and David Wiesner and people like that. So they're books that you're still going to have in your library probably, but you as librarians also know good, newer, up-to-date picture books. So feel free to not necessarily follow the list that's in there, because like I said, this is an older, I think it's probably about 15 years old resource. And we know there have been a lot of really good books published since then. So, all right, go ahead and move to the next one, Andrea. So the next one we want to talk about is a resource called Cultivating Readers, I'm sorry. This is a magazine. It kind of came in a box with all these resources when we actually were doing the programming with folks out in the field. And it is available, the magazine itself is available in English and Spanish. And the whole idea here is to encourage parents to be their children's first and most important teacher, as we always talk about as educators, right? It gives them tips and ideas for working with developing reading with their children. And it's broken down into age groups. So the little orange dot is birth to age 2, and the purple dot is 3 to 5, and the blue dot is 6 to 8. So if you've got families coming in your library who are looking for support in those areas, there are things in here that you can share with them. You're welcome to print out the Cultivating Readers magazine. All this is available for download, and just share that with them. And I told Andrea, and I've forgotten to do it now, but everything on our website is free. Everything that we're going to talk about today is free. So if you have any questions at all, don't feel like you have to worry about, oh, how much is this going to cost, or I have to find the budget for that. Staffing is really the biggest thing that's going to come up, or if you incentivize your families with meals and things like that, that would probably cost you too. But as far as the materials that we're going to talk about, you don't have to worry about that. So like I said, it's available in English and Spanish. So if you've got Spanish-speaking families coming in who want to encourage their children, the tips are there for them. And then it's also got a bookmark in there that you can hand out. That's only available in English. It's got a book list, also only available in English. And the thing that I think is nice about this too, that you might want to incorporate in your programming as librarians, is that there's a calendar in the back of the resource magazine for each month having a holiday associated with it. So like Hispanic Heritage Month that we just got finished celebrating is in there. And it gives ideas of ways that families can use that month as a way to incorporate literacy and reading into their daily activities. But if you're doing that with your library, you could use that idea as something like, you could use it for passive programming if you want to share books and some tips to use the books with, or if you just want to use it as a leaping off point for something to do with families in a family literacy environment. So as long as you're involving both the generations in the reading and what you're doing, that's going to be a great way to use it for support. Okay, next one. So this is near and dear to my heart. This is aimed at families who have young children, preschoolers. Let's Learn Together Outside. If you've been to conferences, you may have heard me talk about this before. This is actually the first library program that I got to be involved in. So I really feel deeply about the greatness of this program, and I got to see the families doing the work. So it was awesome. But what this is a series of 3 events that we developed, and they build off of each other. And they teach, well, they support parents in learning strategies to encourage learning around nature with their preschoolers. And so the whole guide kind of walks you through the idea of planning the event, how to execute the event, how to get families involved. There's a lot of information in this particular example about building social capital with families. Sorry, I got foggy there. That's a big piece of this. So they talk about community asset mapping, and they talk about the parents working together to practice the strategies, to feel comfortable with the strategies, to build on their background knowledge and their friends of knowledge, to be able to bring that forward, to feel comfortable working with their children. There are an awful lot of families who have never interacted with nature, have never felt comfortable that way. And so the idea is to get them in the mindset that being in nature with their children is fun, and that children really like being outside, and there are an awful lot of benefits to being outside and playing. We know that playing and learning are very closely associated with each other. So all the written materials for this particular curriculum are included, and they are in English and Spanish too. The only thing that's not included would be the peripheral materials that you would need. And the thing to know about this too is Andrea did the first year of the grant when we had this, and I did the next 2 cohorts after that. But the great thing that we discovered was that the libraries were very creative in taking the ideas that we put forth about how to explore in nature and made it their own. So if you had families who were not interested in doing, say, the bug activity, I know Andrea had a library where the families were not interested in going outside and capturing a bug and examining it under a magnifying glass. The bugs wouldn't get hurt, but they still didn't want to do that. So their take on the matter was they ordered a big bunch of ladybugs through mail order, and they released them in their little outside garden. And so it was more about observing the ladybugs and knowing, talking through what the ladybugs do in nature and how they're beneficial. And that was just a great example of how to take an idea and be faithful to the strategy of developing conversation skills, developing vocabulary skills, developing observation skills, and scaffolding on what children observe to kind of build out what they're learning and make it their own. So that was wonderful to see. Okay, next slide. Wonderopolis. I don't know if you guys have heard of Wonderopolis. I hope you have, but you may not have. This is kind of our flagship digital asset, and I'm excited about Wonderopolis now more than ever because I'm actually part of the team that writes the wonders for Wonderopolis, and I've never done that before, and I will tell you that as a librarian, it speaks very dear to my research heart. So this is the very first wonder here on the page, Why Are Flamingos Pink? And this is free again. I will say that. And I know Andrea just shared the link. It's wonderopolis.org. That's all you have to do is go directly to that. And what this site is where we have taken questions from kids all across the country and kind of aggregate them and make sure that we're addressing not the same subject over and over and over again, and kind of a broad set of subjects. And we do the research and we level the writing that we do for 3rd to 5th grade, although it's not just for 3rd to 5th graders. We'll talk about that in a second. And we present an answer in 500 to 700 words to make it digestible and interesting. And it's also very literacy rich. So there are activities on the page. There are questions about reading comprehension. There is an opportunity to learn new vocabulary. So each wonder, the new wonders have 9 vocabulary words associated with them. But there's also links to vocabulary that links to other wonders. So you can learn, we call it going down the Wonderopolis hole. If you get started on one wonder and you click through, there's no telling where you can end up. And that's a lot of fun too, but that's for another day's discussion. So you'll see we've got pictures there at the top. We always include pictures. We always include a video, so you get a little bit more understanding about the subject. And there are also Common Core standards are associated with these. I lost my words there for a second. Not just Common Core, but also math standards and social sciences standards. And we've also recently incorporated the American Association of School Librarian standards. You're welcome for that. But I was excited that we got to include those because there's a lot in there, you know, about research and things like that, and very important standards to include for school librarians, but also just general librarians who are looking to say, yes, this is associated with what we find important in our field. Sorry about that, getting a phone call. I lost my train of thought. So the other things to know about this page is up there underneath the question where it says, why are flamingos pink? You see a little tiny icon that says listen. And that is from where we developed a partnership with Microsoft, and they have allowed us to incorporate immersive reader into our webpage. And this is to kind of break down some barriers as far as people who have issues being able to read on their own, whatever they may be. So immersive reader will translate. I went and counted today, and there are 122 languages available there to have translated. And there is the ability to change the size and the color of your text and your background. So for people who have visual issues, they can adjust it to where it's easier for them. If you have people who need it read to them, then it will do that. It will, I mean, there are a million different things it does. It incorporates a visual dictionary for people who are completely without language. So if you have anyone who identifies as needing a little bit more help and they're wanting to do it on their own, then you can show them the ways that they can do the settings. And Wonderopolis is just like an open encyclopedia for them. And it ranges from why are flamingos pink to what is quantum physics. It's not just simplistic questions. They are very, very, very broad. And it started out being a STEM database, but it has expanded out to be more than that. We have recently incorporated a lot more art education and a lot more fine arts education. And another thing to know, the purple button up at the top that says collections, that's a newer feature. And what we've done there is collected themed wonders and put them together in one place so that you don't have to search through and try and find everything about Hispanic Heritage Month or African American History Month. And there's not an exhaustive list there. It's something that we are growing. And the lists underneath each collection are not necessarily exhaustive either. They're just an entry point for you to know that we do have quite a few, and they're broken down. Like if you're talking about Hispanic Heritage Month, there might be things about geography, there might be things about art, there might be things about civil rights. So I would encourage you to explore that. If you're doing anything around themes, then you would be able to download some of the Wonderopolis wonders and share them with people, and they're very interesting. There are also packed time activities associated with each wonder. That's kind of an enrichment piece too. So if you've got families who are wanting to learn together, which of course is what we're all about, then they might look at Why Are Flamingos Pink? There might be an activity. I don't know. I've not looked at the activities on this page because it's an older one, but there are activities associated with that. Like if you were a bird, what kind of bird would you be? Draw a picture and share your story with an adult. So they build on the skills and the background information that the kids are learning from the website, and just make it a little bit deeper learning that way. Okay, Andrea, you want to advance? And this is the last one I'm going to talk about today. It's our Equitable Family Engagement Toolkit, Equity in Family Engagement Toolkit. This was recently developed. I think it's been within the past 2 years. A partnership that NCFL did with the Jefferson County Public Schools here in Louisville, and also with a local organization that we've partnered with. I always have to look up the name because they go by AMPED, A-M-P-E-D, but it stands for the Academy of Music Production, Education, and Development. And if you haven't heard of them, you probably will at some point, because their head, Dave Christopher, is a force to be reckoned with across the city and the state. He's doing wonderful things with and for families. So we developed this with them in a co-design approach. What we were wanting to do was talk to families and talk to organizations about how we can bring more equity to schools and community organizations. This is written specifically from a school standpoint because we did it with Jefferson County Public Schools, but that doesn't mean it's not applicable across the board, because I've looked at a lot of the tools in here and found them applicable to me, and I'm not in a school or a library anymore, so I just am using them for my own personal development, and I think that's a great way to look at it. So there are 7 modules, starting out from learning the difference between equity and equality and justice. If you've ever seen that great cartoon where the 3 people are looking at the baseball game over a fence, and one of them is standing on a box and one of them isn't standing on a box. And then they've actually expanded that now to the last slide being justice, which is where everybody's able to see the game. There's no fence. Everybody's standing on the ground and able to enjoy what's happening. So this is a very strong piece of who we are and what we're trying to accomplish as an organization. The diversity, equity, and inclusion lens is something that we're applying to our work internally, but also in the work that we do with organizations across the country. As I said, family voice is a very strong piece of this. So there are quotes in there from families working with these organizations. We're looking to support educators in making sure that children and the families that they work with feel heard and seen and valued, because that's not always the case. And there are some very simple steps that people can take. It's kind of walking you through the idea of reflecting on what you've been doing and looking at ways that you can improve what you've been doing, because we can all improve. And one of the big pieces too is activating funds of knowledge. If you've worked with any kind of group and you've heard about funds of knowledge, this is a great concept to bring forth as far as an equity discussion. And all it is really acknowledging the assets that children and families bring with them wherever they go, and how to light them on fire, if you will, to have them share and feel good about their culture and where they come from, and the things that they know that other people may not know. So it can be as much as, sharing a recipe from their family, or bringing in a picture of where their grandparents are from, anything like that. But using that as a way to enrich working with families and children is very, very powerful. And there are a lot of really great videos in here too, just kind of simplifying the language, talking through what some of these concepts mean, and making it more attainable for people who are trying to do better in this area, because it's very important these days. And I know librarians are right in the center of all that because of the conversations that are being had about history discussions and book banning and things like that. So if you ever just want to check it out for yourself, that would be great. But also something to think about as far as, is your library being equitable? Are there things that could be done to make your programming more equitable and inclusive? Just, a vision to look through those things and see how you think you could be doing better. And I will tell you too that hopefully in the next couple of years there will be a lot more coming from NCFL about that information. We're working with the Public Library Association on an IMLS grant, and it's all about training staff in libraries to work more equitably with Latinx families across the country. So keep an eye out for us and maybe subscribe to some of our newsletters or our social media so that you'll see what's happening as we go through. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Andrea so she can tell you about our exciting funding opportunity.
Thanks, Emily. I want to pause just quickly in case there are any questions about the resources that we shared before we switch gears. I did try to put the links in the chat as Emily was sharing about those resources. Those links are direct links to download the PDFs. So you can also get to them through our website, through the navigation that Emily shared at the beginning. But I just want to also let you know that those direct links are in the chat. So I'll just pause in case there are questions before we move on.
I wanted to mention too, and I didn't say this earlier, but these are just a sampling of what we have available. So don't feel like these are the only things that might be applicable to the work that you're doing. Do go on the site and kind of dig around and explore and see if you find other things that might be worthwhile to you. And if you do, feel free to talk to me about it because I'd love to hear how they're being used.
I don't see questions coming through the chat, but if there are, let me know. Emily and I will monitor that and we'll pause to answer those. But I wanted to take a little bit of time to share about a new opportunity that NCFL has through a preschool development grant. So NCFL is partnering with the Governor's Office of Early Childhood through the preschool development grant. I'm actually going to pause really quickly to answer Ashley's question because I don't want to get too far into this preschool grant before we answer the question. So the question, Emily, is, are there materials specifically for teens?
That's a great question because we have just recently started new programming where we are working with, well, I'm not sure who exactly we're working with anymore, Andrea. Is it still, there's an earmark from Congressman Yarmouth when he was in office. So internally, we've been calling it the Yarmouth Grant, but that's not what it is. Anyway, it is about family service learning and virtual reality. And we've been working with Jefferson County Public Schools kind of as the pilot for this grant. We would love to take it wider. We've been working with middle schoolers and high schoolers in Title I schools. They've been working with us around Much to develop new wonders. And it's been fascinating to watch. The kids are very engaged. We've had great engagement also with fathers, which is a new thing for us. We always try to get fathers, but we're not always successful. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I can turn you over to our coworker, Kristen Whitaker. She is the leader of that program, and she is more than happy to share information about it.
Yep, and I'll just add to that, when we're thinking about teens, Wonderopolis is a great resource to share. And then also, as we go into, as you're exploring the website, there are some activities for families that are kind of downloadable activities that are designated by age group. And so there are some that are specific to early childhood. A lot of the start of our work, as I gave you that continuum at the beginning, was in early childhood and in elementary school. But we have kind of expanded that to understand that, all of the children in the family have needs. And so we're working to continue to add to those resources. So I would say as you're perusing the website and you're looking at out of school time, some of those family learning activities will have some things that are targeted more towards older students.
Yeah, I kind of rushed through Wonderopolis because I wanted to cover all the resources, but we've found through the years that just about every age group uses Wonderopolis for whatever reason, whether it's to get background knowledge, to start a research project, or just as like a bell ringer when the day starts to learn something new. So yes, Andrea is correct. It is great for teens, also for adult education folks who are just developing vocabulary and wanting to improve their reading skills. So that's why when we say 3rd through 5th grade, that's not who it's for. That's just the level that we write it at to make sure that it has the greatest accessibility for the greatest number of people.
Right. So with that, I'll go ahead and talk briefly about the preschool development grant. So through this grant funding, NCFL is able to offer mini grants for partners to implement some of our programs. And one of the things I wanted to share today is our NCFL playgroup model, which is called Play with Purpose. So what we're looking to do over the next 2 to 3 years is work with library partners that would be interested in providing a play group for families with children of either birth to 3 or that 3 to 5 age range. And our goals for this work are to really build the capacity of the folks on the ground, so whoever is working with you on site to facilitate these groups, but also provide family members with strategies to support their children's development through play. And we also, in all of our programming, and Emily referenced this earlier, is we want to work on helping build those social networks for families as well. So I'm going to talk briefly about what the playgroups are and then share some follow-up links and information if anyone is interested in having a deeper discussion about bringing this to their library. And our goal is really to enhance that early learning, the oral language development and emergent literacy, and ultimately get kids ready for kindergarten. So with Play with Purpose, these are workshops that are designed to run over 9 weeks that are really grounded in some of the things that we've learned from our family literacy programming. So each workshop has a specific time dedicated for that support for parents. We call it parent time. When I say the word parent, as I'm sure everyone knows on this call, that doesn't always necessarily mean a biological parent. That could be any significant adult in that child's life. But we want to make sure that we are working with the adults to give them strategies that they can use with their children, and that they get a chance to practice those through our PAC time, which is our parent and child together time. And so that's dedicated time for parents to work with their children in a supported environment. And we know that the library is often a place where families go to gather and get resources. And so this would be something that we would love to partner on to, like I said, bring some additional resources to your programs. So the program structure is that there's the parent time lesson. There's some time for parents to get ready to try the strategies with their children. And then we have what we call PAC time, as I mentioned. And then there's also a digital component to this, where we have an app that we use called Sparkler that aligns with the Ages and Stages questionnaire, the ASQ, that provides at-home activities that parents can then also do with their children once they leave the session or the program. And with that, this is just a little bit more about Sparkler. It's the family engagement support tool. And there are 2 pieces of this. There's an app for families where they can access the activities and track what they're doing. But there's also a dashboard for providers, facilitators, for you all to see kind of how many activities families are doing and what's happening, when they're not necessarily in the programming. And what programs who work with us get as a part of this is we provide books based on the weekly session topics, and we also provide open-ended toys that can support that play at home. So we're really, really trying to get at this opportunity that play can happen anywhere. You can use the app or you can use the toys, but we're going to provide those strategies to help maximize that time for families together. And so those sessions are outlined on a weekly basis. So I'm just showing the example of what this looks like for the birth to 3 sessions. And I'm not going to necessarily read this to you, but there's always a welcome session where families will get more information about kind of the program as a whole and what information is going to be covered throughout their time together. And then NCFL provides for you to give families, like a big canvas tote, and then we'll keep adding supplies to that as we go through. And so there are sessions about spending time together, about books, about play. And like I said, each time families will receive a strategy from us or from the program, the book, and the toy that will go home, and that's theirs to keep, in addition to what is available through the app. So these are the first 4 sessions. Oh, and then there are, just as an example, those are how the first 4 sessions are laid out, but it's a similar layout for all of the weeks of the program. And so again, the target opportunity is ages birth to 5. Right now, this is a 2-year opportunity beginning January 2024. And what we would be doing is working with partners to recruit families in cohorts. So up to 12 to 15 families per group or per cohort to participate for those 9-week sessions. NCFL would provide the training and the materials, but also fiscal support in the form of, there'd be $1,500 that you could use to support the program in any way that you see fit. So that could be used to eliminate barriers to participation, so providing transportation or childcare. It could also be used to support staff time for a facilitator to operate these groups. And then we also provide an evaluation component for the program. So we are collecting some information throughout, and we'll be providing evaluation support. So just to kind of put that into kind of what the roles would look like for this opportunity, NCFL, as I said, would provide that 1-day implementation training. Program that works with us would also be assigned an NCFL coach that would work alongside the program to make sure that it's implemented and that you have the support that you need. We provide the materials, and we also provide an in-person program visit where we could support on the ground. And then the expectation for partners are to participate in the training session, recruit those families, and designate someone to facilitate those playgroup cohorts, and of course participate in the evaluation and the data collection. So our timeline for that, I'm going to put an interest form and a flyer in the chat that you can take back and kind of just think about and look at. The first link that I'm going to put in the chat is a link to the flyer of our preschool development grant and what we can offer. We have 2 funding opportunities through this grant that are outlined in that flyer. And then if folks are interested in participating, we have a short Google form or survey form, rather, that we would ask for interested folks who are interested to complete. And then we're collecting those interest forms between now and November 3rd. And once we get to November 3rd, our team will be following up with everyone who completes that form. Know that this is not like a formal grant application. You don't need to do a lot of research or have a grant writer to fill this out. The questions on the form are really just asking about kind of the population that you serve and your program's capacity to take on this work. We just want to kind of gauge interest and also start to anticipate what type of support we might need to provide through the grant. So if you're interested in that, the information is in the flyer and then in the Monday form. We will be selecting partners to work with in November, and then begin planning that training and onboarding and implementation in December and January. We have some flexibility in our timelines in terms of starting. I also wanted to just note that we have the opportunity to provide multiple rounds of funding for the same program. So if you're a program that says, hey, I think I could offer this playgroup model 4 different times. Maybe I want to start in the spring. I want to do something for my summer programming and then I want to offer another one later in the year, you would be able to receive that stipend to support programming three or four times for each time that you implement the program. And with that, I know we're at our kind of our final minute here, but I wanted to make sure I shared my contact information and Emily's contact information. I'm also happy to stick around for a second and answer any questions that anyone may have regarding any of the resources that we've shared or the grant opportunity that we've just put up. And I'm not sure, Kim, if folks can unmute or if the chat is the only option to ask questions, but if there are any, like I said, if there are any questions.
You should be able to unmute if they want.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure if there are no questions, you could, and you think of something afterwards, you can always email us or complete the form and somebody on our team will reach out. Doesn't look like there are any questions, so I'll just say thank you all for joining us today, and you now have access to the slides and the links. So, please don't hesitate to follow up with us, and thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, both of you, for being here, and thank you everyone else for being here all these 2 days. Amy and I